Hey, time for dinner. We're on 1 Kings chapter 14. At that time, Ahiah, the son of Jeroboam, became sick. And Jeroboam said to his wife, "Please arise and disguise yourself, so they do not know that you are the wife of Jeroboam. And go to Shiloh. See, Ahiah the prophet is there, who spoke to me of becoming sovereign over this people. And you shall take with you 10 loaves and cakes and a jar of honey, and go to him. Let him declare to you what becomes of the child." And Jeroboam's wife did so, and rose up and went to Shiloh, and came to the house of Ahiah. But Ahiah was unable to see, for his eyes had set because of his age. And Jehovah said to Ahiah, "See, the wife of Jeroboam is coming to ask you a word about her son, for he is sick." "Speak to her thus and thus, for it shall be when she comes in that she makes herself strange." And it came to be when Ahiah heard the sound of her footsteps as she came through the door, he said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why are you making yourself strange? And I have been sent to you with a hard word. Go, say to Jeroboam, thus said Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, because I exalted you from among the people and made you ruler over my people Israel, and tore the reign away from the house of David and gave it to you, and you have not been as my servant David, who guarded my commands and who followed me with all his heart, to do only what was right in my eyes. But you have done more evil than all who were before you, for you have gone and made for yourself other mighty ones, and molded images to provoke me, and have cast me behind your back. Therefore, see, I am bringing evil to the house of Jeroboam, and shall cut off from Jeroboam every male in Israel, whether shut up or left at large, and sweep away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam, as one sweeps away dung until it is all gone. Those of Jeroboam who die in the city, the dogs do eat, and those who die in the field, the birds of the heavens do eat, for Jehovah has spoken it. And you arise, go to your house. When your feet enter the city, the child shall die. And all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he is the only one of Jeroboam who shall come to the burial site, because in him there is found a good report toward Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, in the house of Jeroboam. And Jehovah shall raise up for himself a sovereign over Israel, who cuts off the house of Jeroboam this day, and even now. And Jehovah shall strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and shall pluck Israel from this good soil which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they made their ashram, provoking Jehovah. And he shall give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who sinned and who made Israel sin. And the wife of Jeroboam rose up and went and came to Tirzah. When she came to the threshold of the house, the child died, and they buried him, and all Israel lamented for him, according to the word of Jehovah, which he spoke through his servant Ahiah the prophet. And the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he fought and how he reigned, see, are written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. And the days of Jeroboam reign was 22 years, so he slept with his fathers, and Nadab his son reigned in his place. Meanwhile, Rehoboam, son of Shelomo, reigned in Yehudah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became sovereign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Jehovah had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonitess. And Yehudah did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they committed, more than all that their fathers had done. For they also built for themselves high places and pillars, and Asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also cult prostitutes in the land. They did according to all the abominations of the nations which Jehovah dispossessed before the children of Israel. And it came to be in the 5th year of the sovereign of Rehoboam that Shishak, sovereign of Mizraim, came up against Jerusalem. And he took away the treasures of the house of Jehovah and the treasures of the sovereign's house. He took away all. And he took away all the shields of gold which Shelomo had made. And sovereign Rehoboam made shields of bronze to replace them, and entrusted them into the hands of the chiefs of the guard who guarded the entrance of the sovereign's house. And it came to be whenever the sovereign went into the house of Jehovah, the guards would bring him, then take them back into the guard room. And the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? And there was fighting between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days. So Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And the name of his mother was Naamah, the Ammonitess, and Abiam, his son, reigned in his place. And in the 18th year of the sovereign Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abiam became sovereign over Yehudah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Ma'akah, the granddaughter of Absalom. And he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had done before him, and his heart was not perfect to Jehovah, his Elohim, as he was the heart of his father David. But for David's sake, Jehovah his Elohim gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to raise up his son after him by establishing Jerusalem. For David did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, and did not turn aside from all that he commanded him all the days of his life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. And there was fighting between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. And the rest of the acts of Abiam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereign of Yehudah? And there was fighting between Abiam and Jeroboam. So Abiam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Asa his son reigned in his place. And in the 20th year of Jeroboam, sovereign of Israel, Asa became sovereign over Yehudah. And he reigned 41 years in Jerusalem, and his grandmother's name was Ma'akah, the granddaughter of Absalom. And Asa did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, and his father David had done, and put away the cult prostitutes from the land, and removed all the idols that his fathers had made. And he also removed Ma'akah, his grandmother, from being sovereigness mother, because she had made an abominable image for Asherah. And Asa cut down her abominable image and burned it by the Wadi Kidron. But the high places were not removed. However, Asa's heart was perfect with Jehovah all his days. And he brought into the house of Jehovah the set-apart items of his father, and his own set-apart items, silver and gold and utensils. And there was fighting between Asa and Baasha, sovereign of Israel, all their days. And Baasha, sovereign of Israel, came up against Yehuda and built Ramah to keep anyone from going out or coming in to Asa, sovereign of Yehuda. And Asa took all the silver and gold that was left in the treasuries of the house of Jehovah and the treasuries of the sovereign's house, and gave them into the hand of his servants. And sovereign Asa sent them to Ben-Hadad, son of Tabrimon, son of Hezion, sovereign of Aram, who dwelt in Damascus, saying, Let there be a covenant between you and me. And there was between my father and your father. Look, I have sent you a present of silver and gold. Come, break your covenant with Baasha, sovereign of Israel, so that he withdraws from me. And Ben-Hadad listened to the sovereign Asa, and sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel, and struck Ion, and Dan, and Abel, Beth Maacah, and all Kinneroth, with all the land of Naphtali. And it came to be, when Baasha heard it, that he stopped building Ramah and remained in Tirzah. Then sovereign Asa summoned all Yehuda, none was exempted, and they took away the stones and timber of Ramah, which Baasha had used for building, and with them sovereign Asa built Geba of Benjamin and Mitzpah. And the rest of all the acts of Asa, and all his might, and all that he did, and the cities which he built, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? But in the time of his old age he was deceased in his feet. So Asa slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father, and Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his place. And Nadab, son of Jeroboam, became sovereign over Israel in the 2nd year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, and he reigned over Israel 2 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and walked in the way of his father, and in his sin by which he made Israel sin. Then Baasha, son of Ahiah, of the house of Issachar, conspired against him, and Baasha struck him at Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines, for Nadab and all Israel had laid siege to Gibbethon. And Baasha killed him in the 3rd year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, and reigned in his place. And it came to be, when he became sovereign, that he struck all the house of Jeroboam. He did not leave to Jeroboam anyone breathing until he had destroyed him, according to the word of Jehovah which he had spoken by his servant Abiah the Shilonite. Because of the sins of Jeroboam which he had sinned, and by which he had made Israel sin, because of his provocation, and which he had provoked Jehovah, Elohim of Israel. And the rest of the acts of Nadab, and all that he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? And there was fighting between Asa and Baasha, sovereign of Israel, all their days. In the 3rd year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Baasha, son of Ahiah, became sovereign over all Israel in Tirzah, and reigned 24 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and walked in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin by which he had made Israel sin. Then the word of Jehovah came to Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha, saying, Because I raised you up out of the dust, and made you ruler over my people, Israel. But you walked in the way of Jeroboam, and made my people Israel sin to provoke me with their sins. See, I am going to sweep away Baasha, and his house, and shall make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the city, the dogs eat, and anyone belonging to him who dies in a field, the birds of the heavens eat. And the rest of the acts of Baasha that he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Baasha slept with his fathers and was buried in Tirzah, and his son Elah reigned in his place. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came to the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha and his house, because of all the evil that he did in the eyes of Jehovah, in provoking him with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and because he struck them. In the 26th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Elah, son of Baasha, began to reign over Israel in Tirzah 2 years. And his servant Zimri, commander of half of his chariots, conspired against him as he was in Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, who was over his house in Tirzah. Then Zimri came in and struck him and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, and reigned in his place. And it came to be when he began to reign, as soon as he was seated on his throne, that he struck all the household of Baasha, and he did not leave him one male, neither of his relatives nor of his friends. So Zimri destroyed the entire house of Baasha, according to the word of Jehovah, which he spoke against Baasha by Jehu the prophet. For all the sins of Baasha and the sins of Elah his son, by which they had sinned, and by which they had made Israel sin, in provoking Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, with their worthlessness. And the rest of the acts of Elah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? In the 27th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Zimri reigned 7 days in Tirzah, and the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belongs to the Philistines. And the people who were encamped heard it, said, Zimri has conspired and also struck the sovereign. So all Yisrael set up Omri, the commander of the army, to reign over Yisrael that day in the camp. And Omri went up, and all Yisrael with him, from Gibbethon, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to be, when Zimri saw that the city was captured, that he went into a high place of the sovereign's house, and burned the sovereign's house down upon himself with fire, and died, because of the sins which he had sinned in doing evil in the eyes of Jehovah, in walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he had committed to make Israel sin. And the rest of the acts of Zimri, and the conspiracy he made, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? And the people of Israel were divided into 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, son of Ginath, to make him reign, and half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri were stronger than the people who followed Tibni, son of Ginath. And Tibni died, and Omri reigned. In the 31st year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Omri became sovereign over Israel, and reigned 12 years. He reigned 6 years in Tirzah. And he brought the hill of Shomeron from Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built Shomeron, after the name of Shemer, owner of the hill. And Omri did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and did evil more than all those before him, and walked in all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in his sin, by which he had made Israel sin, provoking Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, with their worthlessness. And the rest of the acts of Omri which he did, and the might that he attained, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Shomaron. And Ahab his son reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Ahab, son of Omri, became sovereign over Yisrael. And Ahab, son of Omri, reigned over Yisrael in Shomaron 22 years. And Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, more than all those before him. And it came to be as though it had been a light matter for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he took his wife Isabel, the daughter of Ethbaal, sovereign of the Sidonians. And he went and served Baal, and bowed himself to it, and raised up a slaughter place for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Shomaron. And Ahab made an Asherah, and Ahab did more to provoke Jehovah, Elohim of Yisrael, than all the sovereigns of Israel before him. In his days, Hiel of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and at the cost of his youngest son, Shagub. He set up its gates according to the word of Jehovah, which he had spoken through Yehoshua, son of Nun.